Where will I live? I don't have a job. I don't have enough money to provide for my children, not even myself. Will I break up my family if I leave? Wait, will my kids hate me because I left their dad? Will he hurt me? Will he hurt my kids if I try to leave? It's not that bad. I know he doesn't mean to. I want to help him. He said that he wouldn't do it again, and I love him. I love him. These are just some of the thoughts that women in abusive relationships hear in a very lonely and chaotic world that they are carrying on their shoulders. Many people wonder, why would she stay with him? Why would she put herself and her children at risk? Oh my gosh, why doesn't she just leave? And many times the abuse can be so calculated and designed to make the woman feel as if they are indeed trapped, leaving them feeling like there is no way out. It is not unheard of that women in abusive relationships have actually covered up for their spouse's behavior, isolating themselves with a deep, dark secret and no support system when they finally are ready to break free. It's not surprising either, as women, we're proud when we find love. We want to have the ideal relationship, and we've been taught that if we're in anything but an ideal relationship, that we should keep that to ourselves, and we should not speak of it too loudly. We don't want to embarrass our families, do we? After all, abuse is not really a good look on anyone. But also, wait, is this really abuse that I'm going through? A woman might think to herself, he only shoved me. He didn't actually hit me. No, it was just a slap. It was an open hand. He didn't punch me or anything. No, he's never hit me. He hasn't. He threw something across the room in my direction, but it didn't hit me though, so it's fine. I myself can 100% relate and understand why and how it's so challenging to leave an abusive relationship. Our partners are supposed to be just that, our partners. We don't want to believe that we chose a partner who loves in such a way, and I use quotation marks around loves. We chose this partner to spend our lives with, to start a family with, to share a bed with. So in a way, it almost feels as if we did something wrong by choosing this person as a partner. Somehow it almost feels like we chose the abuse in a way. That's the thing about abusive relationships. It's not just a physical torture. Along with it comes the mental and emotional confusion and torture as well. This epidemic we speak of today, abusive relationships, it's heartbreaking to hear, to think about, and to talk about. But that's just what we're going to do today. Because as you know from episode number 2, we need to have the uncomfortable conversations. We need to go within the void to find the light. And our next guest, Bree, my good friend and survivor, will share her story with us today about how exactly to do that. Welcome, beautiful, courageous, extraordinary, and inspiring Bree. Bree, hi.
Hi.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story of survival?
Well, when you talk about survival, it's crazy to think that that's what I was doing every single day in my relationship. You know, I'm a mom. I got 2 kids, household to run. You have life happening within what's also happening, behind closed doors. So I tended to keep really busy in my relationship. House was always immaculate, always had to get all of the errands done, had to, make sure got one kid off to school, and when that happened, it was hit the ground running. How much can I get done between that time and the time that my husband was going to come home? Because I had to have dinner on the table at 6, not 5:55, not 6:10, but on 6, and everything had to be prepared at the same time. It had to be hot. One portion of the food couldn't be hot on the plate, and the rice be, room temperature. All had to come out at the same time. So it was constant thought in your mind that I have to be perfect. If I'm perfect, I will give him no reason to be mad, no reason to be upset, every reason to want to come home to his wife and children and his perfect home and what seemed to be perfect. So every single day was that. It was survival, and trying to beat the clock. How do I make sure I look amazing, stay in shape, never talk about anything that I'm unhappy about or that's bothering me, or if he hurt my feelings, or if I'm still struggling with the incident that happened the week prior, whether it was either verbal abuse or if he had laid hands on me. Don't talk about that. Get over it. I usually would get about a 24 to 48 hour, depending on what it was, period of time to be upset, to isolate, or to give him the silent treatment, because that was always my go-to. You hurt me, so now you get nothing from me. But his patience would wear thin after about 48 hours, so I better get over it. Never showing any signs of anything to the outside world or to the kids. I had to still be super mom. Within that 24 to 48 hour period of time of that was my healing time that I was allotted. It was never said, but that's when, his patience would wear thin, and it was like, all right, get over it. It wasn't that bad. That was the only time I actually got any assistance from him as a parent. Yes, he was the breadwinner, and even now, see, I'm about to say, like, he was a great provider. I'll point out all the great things that he did. In a crisis, he was great. If you were sick, he would do the most thoughtful things. I can still point out all the great things about him, because that's what I always look for. That's what you look for when you're in that relationship. You're in survival mode, because it doesn't start out like that. My story started out like so many others. It was a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. I would relive the first 6 months, year of our relationship over and over and over again if I could. It was magical.
Right.
But with so much magic, you tend to live in those moments when you're going through the tragic ones.
Yep.
And that is how I did it. I lived in every happy moment on repeat and tried to be perfect.
Yeah.
All the time.
And it's like kind of like a cycle, that you were saying you had 24 to 48, and then it would kind of like go on repeat. Mm-hmm. And when I hear you say the house was like, perfection, I imagine that maybe you were also kind of trying to make it feel like it's not so bad. Like, we have a nice house, and also for your kids too. Like, okay, let's just cover up, the messy part with the house looking great, and, we're going to have fun with the kids. And then especially really highlighting those times where he was supportive. And on that topic, I want to bring up that a lot of the abusers, we always try to villainize the abusers. And I'm not saying that what they have done or are doing is acceptable. It's absolutely not. But we do forget that they're actually human, and they are people, and they're people that we fall in love with. They're lovable because they're human. They are just really missing the mark in extreme ways. Can I ask you, when you think back in the beginning, were there any red flags that you noticed that you think back now and you're like, oh, it was right there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was as simple as I was meeting him. I see it clear as day. I mean, I remember the entire day, everything. We were heading out of town. He was literally, I was running away with him, but we had to get a camper for the back of his truck so I could put all my stuff in the back of his truck because we were going to go on a bit of a road trip, visit family and friends along the way. So we were just doing a straight shot out of town. So all my stuff had to be protected from possible weather. And so that was the thing about him. He was that manly man, like, oh, problem, solution, solved, done, got it. I got you. It was always his thing, I got you. I will always have you. Got it. So we were getting a camper shell, but we had to get there before they closed. And it was about an hour and a half drive. But I had got off work late, and or it took me longer to close out from work than expected. And so I was running late. And I remember pulling up next to his truck, and his body language was completely off. It was the first time that he hadn't met me with just like complete, just awe, like couldn't wait to see me, couldn't wait to embrace me. And he was so angry. He was borderline, like on the verge of just screaming at me right there in the parking lot. But instead, cold, short, and abrupt. He just was like, get in the truck, we gotta go. And I get in the truck and I'm like, I'm really sorry, it was late. And he's like, his response is, I'll spare you from them, but a lot of swearing and inappropriate language was thrown in my direction, but I took it as like, oh, he's frustrated. He's frustrated because we're late. Now he's stressed out. We have a drive. So I then turned it around and was like, it's the situation. I made him late. Like, it's my bad. Hadn't been in that situation with him. And looking back now, I realize, no, he was straight angry, and this is who he was. And I chose to give him the out in that moment. And after we got the camper, and we made it down there in time, and we got the camper, then he was able to talk to me. Sorry I was short. Sorry about that. But you just don't understand the stress and the pressure that I'm under. And here comes the excuse, the reason, justification. And I was like, oh, no, I get it. I'm sorry I'm late. And he's like, I just need you to communicate with me if you're going to be late. Okay, so still my fault, but sorry I got short with you. Right. And it was in that moment later on I realized that was going to be his pattern. Better to ask for forgiveness than, forgiveness than permission kind of vibe with everything. And we got the camper and everything worked out. But that was just the first little segue into what was to come over the next 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's so like interesting and frustrating at the same time how, like I said, it's almost like an art that somehow, when you're in the receiving end, all of a sudden, well, it's really a form of gaslighting. You feel like it's somehow your fault. Like, oh, I brought this on myself because you were late. So then you deserve to be cussed at and verbally abused and so on. No, but this is how it happens. And I've definitely done that. I've been like, oh, because I did A, B, or C, that makes it okay for him to do A, B, and C, on their end. So I just can't believe how much of a slippery slope it is. And it happens so quick that you almost don't realize you're in it until you're really in it. You're like deep in it. So, some crazy stuff, how the mind and emotions work. How did you get out? What was like the breaking point, or I guess like the rock bottom?
Oh my gosh, there were so many times in our relationship I hit rock bottom. the time that I finally left. I had left him a couple times prior to the finale. But the breaking point for me was I had gone on a mother-daughter camp out with my daughter and two other moms and their daughters. We had had a lot of issues with our other child being sick, and long story short, I had to be in the hospital a lot with our other child. And my daughter at the time was only 4 years old. So all of a sudden she went from having mommy full time, just her and I, and then I gave birth to our second child and she had to share me. And then unfortunately her son was very sick. So when I got invited to do this camp out, I had never left the kids with their dad, more than to just maybe run an errand or to go run to the grocery store real quick. No more than like an hour. He never had to watch them. I mean, when our son was sick, we had a nanny. He did have to stay with our daughter at night and stuff like that. We had help, and she was in school. Like there was, and it was definitely hard on both of us. I will say that. But he said, no, she needs this. You should go. I'll stay home with her son, and it'll be fine. And I'm like, are you sure? I can just take him. I was uneasy about the whole thing. And he was like, no, it'll be fine. We'll just hang out. It'll be fine, I promise. I was like, okay, if you change your mind, I'll take him. I mean, I must have told him that, or sure, maybe 5-6 times before walking out the door. And then I think I got a mile away from the house, called him, was like, how's it going? Do you want me to take him? Because he made it very clear in our relationship, the kids were my job. He worked crazy hours and my job was the house, everything in it. All errands, take care of the vehicles, like if they need to be maintained, doctor's appointments, everything kids. That was my job. Mm-hmm. And I was expected to do it well. So I go on the camp out, but where we were, we didn't have cell reception, so I'd have to drive like 1.5 miles out to the road to call and check in from the campsite. So I did that a few times. It was a pain in the butt, but I did it. And then the next day, we had plans with some friends of ours, to do, it was kind of like a podcast. It was like a dinner party, but it was being filmed for a product that they were making. And I was supposed to be the spokesperson for it or something. So anywho, I jammed home. I left my daughter at the camp out because they were going to stay for the rest of the day and swim. So it was just me. And I got home. And there he was, sitting we had this massage chair, sitting there and holding our son and cocktail in hand. And I was like, I'm going to hurry. We got to get ready to go. Like, I'm so sorry. I got stuck in so much traffic. I'll get changed and then I'll take our son so then you can get ready. And thank you so much. I can't tell you how much our daughter needed this time. And how much I needed to reconnect with her. And it was really nice to have this time with her because it had been almost 2 years of our son being sick. So I go in, I shower, I get in a cocktail dress. I mean, I am done up. And I come out, I'm just putting on my earrings. I'm standing in our bedroom, and he's sitting in our massage chair with a drink in hand, son in the other arm, sitting on his lap. And I think, oh, he's just like relaxing for a minute before we go into this party. And he's just staring at me with this look on his face. And all of a sudden, this feeling of complete fear washes over me like, oh no.
It's happening.
Yeah, because I could identify it. Mm-hmm. And he just stared at me and he just said, you fucking bitch. And I look at him like in shock. Because even over all the years, his words still shocked me, which I look back and I'm like, why was I shocked? I'm still shocked. I don't think you get used to it. And I go, what? And he goes like, I can't believe you would leave me home.
Oh, wow.
with our son. This is your fucking job. You've got one job. And he goes, you fucking whore cunt. You will never leave me with our child or children ever again. This is your fucking job. And I'm like, whoa. Babe, no, what are you doing? Stop. And he goes, fuck you. And I'm like, I asked you if you wanted me to take him. And he said, you should have known better. And I said, and I'm all, why would you call me a whore and a cunt? I'm your wife. I went on a mother-daughter campout. And he said, you will never do that again. And he stands up. And he's a big man. And I go, okay, I'll never leave them with you again. I'm sorry. And I just said, I offered to take him. He goes, you should have known better. And then he got really loud. And it was in that moment where I was just trying to get my son. He was on the other side of the room. And as soon as my husband saw that that was my goal, he was going to make sure and block that for me. Mm-hmm. No, he got me out of the room, locked me out of the room with my son and him in the bedroom. And my son just wanted his mommy because I'd been gone. And so I just said, come here, baby, and got down on his level, holding back tears because I was terrified. And my husband blocked him from coming to me and walked towards me until I was locked out of the room. So then I'm yelling through the door. There's something that comes over a mother whenever it's your child. I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden I became a gorilla and thought I could take on this big, huge man. And I start banging on the door because he's locked me out. And I said, just give me my son. And he told me that I could get the fuck out of his house and never come back. And I said, I will leave, just give me my son. And he starts screaming through the door. I mean, everything under the sun of, I will burn this bitch to the ground with you in it. Like, it just became like threats, violent threats. And I said, give me my son. Now the negotiation was over of like, I'll leave, just give me my son, to give me my son. To me literally banging the door down, like with the backs of my fist and my forearms, just kicking the door, hitting the door, pulling on the handle with all, 115 pounds of me at the time? Like, it was ridiculous. I probably looked ridiculous. Didn't care. Just trying to get to my son. Well, then he opens the door really fast. I'll never forget it. And all of a sudden, he's just standing right in front of me. And the door is gone. The door's open. And so it's just me and him. And all he had to do was walk towards me. And he had me all the way up against the wall at the top of our stairs. So just if you walked straight back from our bedroom, the flight of stairs was to my left. And he had me all the way up against the wall by my throat. And my feet were on the ground. And my son had walked out behind my husband, and I look over and I see him standing there, and I'm holding on to my husband's hands around my neck, and I'm trying to get him off me, and I just look at my son and I say his name, like in a whisper. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, my husband realizes what he is doing, because that's the one thing that a parent has. Like, there's your children have like a hold over you. And he dropped me. But he was trying to throw me down the stairs. I was holding on to the banister the whole time. Like, that's all that I had. And I was holding on to his arm. So it was like, if I go, you're going kind of thing. Like, you know. And then he grabbed our son and went back into the bedroom and locked the door.
Oh my God.
It was in that moment that I realized, oh my gosh, I'm either going to leave on my own or I'm going to leave in a body bag. I went down the stairs, trembling. I grabbed my purse. I went around the back side of we had our front living room and then I guess you would call it our den. I go in the kitchen, I grabbed a knife, I opened the back door, through our laundry room, because it opened up into the garage. And I opened all the doors so I wouldn't have to try to open a door and then run out at the same time with my child in my arms. And I texted a girlfriend and said, if you don't hear from me within 10 minutes, call 911. She had known about what was going on in my relationship. She'd seen it. My husband didn't hide it in front of people. He would do a lot of things and say a lot of things in front of people. Friends, close friends, family. It was humiliating. And so after I had my escape route planned, I grabbed a knife and I went into my den. And I'm shaking and I'm thinking, this is it. Like, I'm either going to leave in a body bag or I'm going to prison or I'm going to get out. And if I can get out, I can never come back. My husband came down the stairs with our son, and I'm standing by her couch with my knife where you can't see it, or my son, and he goes, okay, that kind of got out of hand, and laughed.
Wow.
Like, okay, whoa, that was a bit much, like almost like a joke. And so I pull my knife out just where he can see it, not my son, and he sees that I'm shaking. And I've never stood up to him like this. And he goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, all right, well, when I said, just give me my son. So he puts my son down, and he goes, go get mommy. And I take the knife and I tuck it into the couch before my son gets to me. And he runs over to me, and I grab him, and I'm standing right where I could still grab it, and I've got my son in my arms, and I put my purse on me, and I got my keys, and I got my phone, and I got the exit, and I'm looking to my right. All I have to do is walk out that door, and he's not going to be able to catch me. Mm-hmm. And he goes, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. I got a little out of control, and I was like, get away from me. Don't ever come near me again. Don't ever come near me. Don't touch me. I said, you will never hold my son for me, ever. And it was in that moment he actually, I think I scared him enough that he went away. Needless to say, I got in my car that night and I drove all night. My daughter didn't come home. She stayed with a friend. Mm-hmm. And that was it for me. I think it was the moment where my child wasn't in my arms, and that was a bartering tool that I was like, not the kids. And that's what did it. It wasn't that it was me that was enough. Loving myself wasn't enough. It was that I will not put them through it. Because in all the years, nothing had ever happened in front of our kids. Never. I made sure of it. But then I realized I'm not in control of it. Something could happen. And if I'm the reason he's ticked off, I need to exclude myself from this situation. And that's what it was. So sorry for the long answer.
No.
But it was really, it took me all of that.
Yeah.
And choosing to be like, well, I'm not going to be a good parent if I'm in prison for defending myself against my husband, and I'm no good dad. And so I had to leave. Right.
Who did you lean on when you did leave? Who was your support?
You know, it was funny. All my friends, they all had the same response. Oh, thank God. It was like, we've all been worried about you. Like, were you going to make it out? I would say that I had always built really good bridges. So I had connections and was able to get into a great little place. 3 days later, in fact. It was crazy how fast it happened.
That's amazing.
But I think if you put good vibes out there and you're good to people, you know, they want to help you.
Yeah.
And got into a place. And I would say that I did kind of isolate at first. But it was just my girlfriends. I had some really close girlfriends.
Yeah.
And that was actually, you know, if you're somebody that's in an abusive relationship, have a backup plan. have a backup plan. I had people,
Always.
and I told my husband, even when I was still living in the house, like after that incident had happened, I told him, I said, if I don't call or text, and you won't know which ones at certain times, the police will be called, and there's a letter with my statement of all the things that you have done, and I have voice recordings of you. And I did. When he would leave me threatening voicemails, I'd keep them.
Wow.
Text messages, I printed them out.
Smart. And then hide them somewhere?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't hide them at the house.
Right.
I kept
Because
them
then
at
he could find them.
a girlfriend's house. I said,
Okay.
you won't know which friend has them. And I have to text at a certain time or call. One or the other. And I have to say certain words. And it was
have like a code word.
Code word. I always had a code word with my mom if I was someplace and I wanted her to pick me up and I didn't want my kids or the other kids to know that I didn't want to stay the night, so I wouldn't be embarrassed. I would have to say a certain word to her. And she knew that was, oh, nope, I'm in trouble, I have to come home. And it was always like she'd put it on her so I could go
Right.
home. And it wasn't the kid that couldn't do the sleepover kind of
Right.
thing. So I used that with my girlfriends, and it was great. Kind of like, you can't mess with me within this period of time.
Yep.
So you better not do anything.
That's really good advice for, other women who might be listening right now that are in the same situation. So thank you. And can I ask you, when I was in not your situation, but a similar situation, I remember talking to some members of the church that I was attending, and although they were supportive in a way, they offered prayers and advice, but they never offered like a way out for me. It was kind of like what they could offer is how to stay and get through it.
Marriage counseling. Have you talked to the chaplain? Have you talked to, are you guys in a marriage counseling? Have you got him any programs?
Yeah.
But it's never, how can we help you get out?
Right.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, and that's it breaks my heart that seems to be a common response to women that are in need, and they go to a resource that feels like, is a trustworthy resource, and that's the answer we get, which I appreciate the prayers. I did appreciate the prayers and the advice. However, what might have been needed, and it turns out it wasn't needed, but I know for other women, it may 100% be needed, are the resources of how to get out. What's your plan B, which you just revealed to us. So thank you so the code word is important, right? Keeping track of what was done and having it written down or recorded somehow, and having like maybe a trustworthy friend hold on to that information.
Also, with having written things down, when you're in love with your abuser, you have to constantly remind yourself that you're not crazy. That kind of like in the beginning statement that you made, it wasn't that bad. He just threw it in my direction. Or he threw it at me, but it didn't hit me, so it doesn't count. No, it does count. Any abuse is abuse. Verbal, mental, emotional, physical is abuse. And, to be completely honest here, a lot of women can relate to what I'm about to say, and that is that if he would have never laid hands on me, I probably would have never left. But I will say that the emotional abuse, the verbal abuse, is the abuse that's lasted the longest.
Right.
I always say, I can take a hit. The pain only lasts until the bruises and scars heal, right? But that echo, that pebble in the pond, that ripple effect of someone's words,
right,
that is what has stayed with me. Feeling less than, feeling like, oh, I am a horrible mom because I left one child and went on a camp out. Can't do anything right. I can't even get the meal prepped all at the same time to where it's all hot. Like, I can't even do that. Like, I'm not a good wife. So, like, am I a good mother? You're literally, they've got you questioning every single thing that you're doing. And that level of abuse is what really lasts. And having those notes, and I did have to listen to some of the recordings, like on my phone, of whenever he would be screaming at me on the phone, like leaving me a voicemail because he didn't pick up my phone. God forbid I was putting the baby down, had my phone not with me. Those things to go back and listen to remind myself why I left.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in love with your abuser, you will make all the excuses for them and give every out and remember all the things they did. He's a good provider. He's there for you in a crisis. He's great whenever you don't feel well. He's handy. He's strong. He's capable. You point out all those things, and you'll go back and you'll go back and you'll go back. But if you're trying to leave somebody that's physically harming you, verbally abusing you, having those reminders, telling your friends what he said, why he said it, so they can remind you. My
Right.
girlfriends have always reminded me, B, do you remember this one time? B, do you remember this one time?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, we were there. We
Yeah.
saw it. You know, how you really want that? You really want to go back to that? And I urge people to have a friend that they can confide in, to remind them later, to be that mirror that they can't deny.
What's great is that you're practicing what you're preaching right now. You're talking about it, and you're going to inspire other women to talk about it, and it could just save their lives. Just like, you did. You told your friends about it. We have to be vulnerable and open up and talk about, the stuff, the void, the darkness, the shadow, all of it. Otherwise, it's going to break us emotionally and quite possibly physically as well from the partner. So, Bree, you have been blessed with a daughter and a son. Is there any advice to young listeners or even those who might find themselves maybe getting into a relationship of what they should expect from a healthy, loving relationship?
Well, seeing as the most healthy relationship I have is with my children, a partner, a true partner should be just that, a partner. Somebody that carries the load when you are weak. Somebody that is there to do half of the work, whether it's emotional, physical work, either one, to be there, to be supportive, to be kind, and to be loving. I want to say that your partner should be not mirror image, but pretty close to the love between a mother and a child, a father and a child and a mother and child and a father. Unwavering and just pure, always with good intentions. And I say that because in the back of my head, I'm also saying the road to hell was paved with good intentions, right? But a pure heart is the difference. And that's what you should be looking for. Somebody that's slow to anger, that is calm when they speak, that realizes that words have an effect. They have purpose. And they're that pebble in the pond, the ripple effect. Once you say something, it is there. And you can't take it back. So be mindful of how somebody speaks to you and never disregard even the smallest thing, like I did.
Right.
In the parking lot, with a camper, going to pick up a camper for a truck. Simple thing, right? I caught it then. I saw it then. I made an excuse for it. Don't make excuses for bad behavior.
Right. It's not, yeah, exactly. You control your own actions, period.
Yep.
And same as the other person.
And I will say my mother-in-law always said something to me, when you know better, you do better. And we all learn from our mistakes. And with that being said, what I will say, I always tell my clients I send them love and light at the end of a session. So I'll give you a little love and light. With all of this being said, my ex-husband, me leaving him, he has said to me, was the best thing I ever did.
Yep.
And he said, because without that, he would have never gotten help, and he would not be the person that he is today. He said, because I was strong enough to leave, it shook him to his core. He had to lose everything that mattered to him, but it helped him to get help.
Yep.
And he's a happier person inside because he's learning how to deal with his anger. And that is all you can ever wish. And for the person that you love, and that's what I always say, pray for your enemies, pray for your bullies, because they're hurting somewhere inside.
That's right.
Doesn't excuse bad behavior, but they are hurting.
That's right. Brava and bravo. Bree, on top of being a beautiful, inspiring, and strong woman, friend, mom, and being, you already mentioned, you are also great at what you do. Bree gives the best facials in town, and they are unlike any others I have received. You somehow bring spirituality and peace into your facials. You end your facials in such a way that it leaves me feeling like I just spent the last hour meditating and praying. And I walk out of the studio, or your studio, glowing inside and out. If you like, you can share with our listeners and audience about how they can connect with you to receive one of your amazing facials.
You can just hit me up on Instagram at Love and Light Day Spa if you are needing a facial.
Yay! It's definitely worth it. I always love mine. Bree, it has been such a pleasure, and I thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. In fact, I can confidently say all the women who are listening, thank you for your bravery. And in a way, I can say men too, like you mentioned, your husband too. Thanks you. Even those men who are abusing their partners now. You know why? Because by you being so brave and courageous and sharing your story and leaving, you are going to inspire other women to break on through to the other side. And this action will actually serve their men that they love in ways that they cannot understand just yet. When I was living my story, while I appreciated and felt the support through the prayers and advice that were offered to me, what I also would have appreciated and what I feel is needed for many women, for all women actually, are resources. Resources so that they know that they are never trapped and that there is always a way out. So make sure to check out the show notes for resources if you or someone you know is in need of help. On the next episode of Real Life Shh, we're going to segue into twin flame relationships and how they can become a slippery slope into a toxic relationship. We must remember still, even with all the shadow that some of us may carry, that we have inflicted on others or have been inflicted upon, still, we are all children of God. We are all divine beings. We were all created out of love, and we are all worthy of love. Love includes boundaries and loving yourself so much so that you hold your boundaries. And if that means unweaving yourself or leaving your loved one who is abusing you, that, beloved, is courageous, a courageous act of true love to yourself and to your loved one. And so it is.